All right. Welcome to Winterviews, Series 4, Episode 1. I am Catherine Silva, Cat for short. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend, the amazing Clay Mcleod Chapman is here. How are you doing today, Clay?
What's the myth part?
That's a great question. I
Have you
feel
heard?
like
His breath is always, it smells like strawberries.
I feel like the myth is how much energy. How can you have so much energy?
Oh. Um, I mean, I'm trying to answer the question seriously, but there's no like, I mean, coffee for sure.
Mm,
Uh, but I don't know. Like, I'm actually just having fun. Like, I I think I've gone like way too much of my life not being around people or being able to kind of celebrate the things that I love. So like horror writing, spooky stuff, like you know, the energy just comes from that kind of glee of we're like we were just talking about AuthorCon before we started, and that idea of like when you're there, it's just so it's just fun to be around people. And if people are talking to you with like they want to talk to you about something that you wrote, like that's amazing. Like that is very energizing to me. So I think I have just like tamped down these like untapped reserves of enthusiasm that I was just waiting for people to like want to talk to me about stuff.
no, I admire your enthusiasm like so much. I know a lot of people do. It's but not just that. It's a lot of us get really anxious,
Yeah.
and nervous, and then that has a way of just kind of taking over, I
Yeah.
guess.
And here comes this jerk who like can't shut up, and like it's like the word like I mean, for those who are introverted, like I feel like when you're in proximity to someone who is essentially like, I don't know, Krusty the Clown, like it just feels like the last thing you want to be around or kind of like orbiting. Like
I
who wants
I would
that?
argue that you're not terrifying, first of all, and
That's
nor
early.
sinister. And your enthusiasm comes out as just genuine joy, and
Mm.
um, it doesn't feel phoned in. It doesn't feel fake. It doesn't feel like an act. Uh,
Mm.
so there is just something really awesome about it.
Um, Thank goodness. Cause like, I don't know, like we're doing this stuff and we're just getting our stuff out there. We're like trying to write these stories, trying to tell these stories. And at the end of the day, if like creating a certain culture of joy, particularly now,
Mhm.
I feel like it is uh, maybe like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, there was like that moment of like, I don't think I want to contribute any Schadenfreude or any kind of like critical negativity when it comes to things that I don't like specifically
Mm,
with like social media and stuff. So like,
yeah.
if I read a book and I don't like it, I'm not gonna go to Twitter and just be like, ooh, poo poo on this,
Yeah.
but to kind of use it as a platform to kind of talk about the things that I really love. Like, you know, it's cornball, but like just accentuating the positive seems to go a lot longer or feels a little bit more gratifying or
Yeah.
enriching than like 1 star.
No, I completely agree with that. I'm also in that boat of just, if you didn't like something, you don't feel the need to, I don't know, get into it, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it's not worth um spreading negativity.
Yeah.
Or not even negativity, but just like, you want to focus on the stuff that makes you feel good, and that's really the big thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we're going off on a sidebar tangent here, but I always just get bummed out when people are kind of critical of things that they don't like because, you know, I always chalk that up. Like if there's something, if I don't like something, I don't find fault in the thing itself as much as I'm just
Yeah.
like, well, that's not for me. Like that's like
Yeah.
I, I'm always kind of amazed at when I go to like Goodreads or Amazon and I read like a negative review for a book that I love, and I just say to myself, this is unfathomable to me. Like I can't, like, why do people not like this book that means the world, like changed my life?
Yeah.
um and then you realize like, oh, that every book has that kind of
Yeah.
whatever the ratio is of like, I hate this book is the worst, versus like this book means the world to me. Like I don't know, like I just feel like that's so funny how, you know, if you get caught in that echo chamber, like you know, that's like that weird negativity just doesn't have a outlet, or it's empty calories. Like that's like what social media seems to be. So, um, yeah, which is just riffing off of that weird idea of like the myth, but like that idea of like, I don't know, like, I just want to be like the Flavor Flav of horror lit.
Well, Grumpy Rick here says, I love the books you both write. Perfect escapes from the horrors of the real world. So, thank you
Hey,
very much, Rick.
thank you, Grumpy Rick.
Um, and so we'll steer back to the joy of possession horror, as it were, which is something that I'm personally terrified of. That's one of those genres
Yeah.
that really just gets me. Um, so really, possession horror is kind of one of those. I don't know. I don't want to call it like a pillar. Maybe it is a pillar of horror. It's you know been around for a really long time. It's in a bunch of the classic films and books. And I guess my first question to start, because now I have to look at the tiny, tiny print on my phone, is what is your, or what was your first introduction to possession horror?
Oh man. Um, it's so funny because I mean, I am of a particular generation, the post Exorcist generation for sure. Uh, where, I didn't see it in the theaters. I'm not that old, but I like the myth of The Exorcist existed growing up. I was born in the 70s and raised in the 80s. But I was of that kind of VHS video store culture. And for me, it's always these kind of like little inflections of possession, like much like with a lot of pop culture. Like I remember my mom telling me about her experience of actually going to see The Exorcist in the movie theater, and how
Mm.
she was one of these who, what was it? She either passed out or threw up. But she was
God,
like, she was at the
jeez.
theater, and like she was having an anxiety response, and
Yeah.
she was either like her fight or flight just kind of like kicked in, and she was like trying to leave, and like I think she passed out.
Oh, God.
And like, but I hadn't seen the movie. Like I was, I had to be a kid when she was telling me this, and it was probably, like one of those kind of like conversations that you're having with your parents where you're like, have you seen The Exorcist? Or like, I want to watch this movie. And my mother's response to that was like, oh no, that I watched that movie and this is what happened to me. And that honestly kind of sealed its fate for me, because like now here was this thing this piece of pop culture that like had affected my family in such a way that
Mhm.
like I was like, I need to watch this. But I was just way too young. I couldn't. So like it just grew in my head as this like this profane piece of film. And I mean, a lot of people thought it was profane.
Mhm.
And like I just had like this was kind of a part of my overactive imagination as like a little kid, like as someone who's like yet not yet at that age where you're able to kind of imbibe these things. Um, I remember distinctly wandering through like the local video store, Video World, and
Mhm.
in the horror aisle, and I couldn't rent any of these movies, but there was a cassette cover, like the casing for
Yeah.
Evil Dead 2.
Oh God.
And I mean, it's the skull,
Yeah.
and like they've kind of photoshopped the eyes to be human eyes. So it's like, you know, and I swear to God, like I like the eyes I just had this I just remember distinctly like kind of like being in the aisle, locking on the Evil Dead 2, turning this way, the eyes kind of follow, and then like turning the other way,
God.
and the eyes follow. And like it just felt like, oh my God, it's genuinely, it's really staring at me. It's like this is
Yeah.
really happening. And
God.
I was too young to rent Evil Dead 2, but I like that movie was one that like I could not watch because of the cover.
Mhm.
Because like you know, I have this obsession with VHS cassette covers because I always find, for better or for worse, the artwork that you find on the these cassette covers, they tell a story that may be a bit different than the actual movie, and
It's true.
sometimes that story is better than what is in the actual film. And yeah, I just completely like recast and recreated Evil Dead 2 in my head to have these like weird human eyeball skull monsters, and like that was I just thought that's what it was for years.
Mm.
So possession, like for me, possession was always, you know, whether it was real or not, I can't remember me believing that, but I do remember like it was this like, oh, like no, like you can't watch that movie because I passed out, or like
Yeah.
like there was, and so I was like, oh my God, like that, like, and I just felt like, oh, I don't know, I love that, like, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
good.
Now, was it not as scary, do you think, because of dated effects? Or was it just it didn't
No,
have
well, I mean, in all honesty, in all sincerity, like The Exorcist was a profound film going experience for me, because I still watch. I had to have watched it. I started young.
Mhm.
It wasn't one of the first films I watched, but like I had to have watched that at like 12, maybe 11, 10,
Oh
11,
God.
12. Like at an age where it's like, you know, like I deserve to be able to watch older
Yeah.
movies. You know, it's like I'm ready. And then like watching that and the kind of like soft trauma of The Exorcist. And you know, it was genuinely like, say what you will about the actual possession, you know, the latter half of it. But like for me, it was everything kind of leading up to the moment where I think it's Chris Reagan, the mother, um, where she makes the decision like, we're gonna go. This is spiritual. We're gonna go with The Exorcist. Like
Mhm.
it, like the lead up to that, like, is this medical? Is this psychological? Like, you know, like doing. I mean, like honestly, the Spinal Tap scene was terrifying. Um, the scene, the coolest scene, and like what riffs into Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, is that scene where mom comes into the room and finds Reagan violating herself, and with a crucifix of all things. And like to me, watching that which I can't clock it, but like that was like maybe a half hour in, 45 minutes in. Like that seems like a midpoint, like somewhere in the middle-ish. And from that moment on, like that was like a really kind of traumatic viewing experience,
Yeah.
watching that scene.
Yeah. Do
you remember when you watched it?
Well, admittedly, I have not seen it.
Ever?
Yeah. I've never seen it.
My golly.
Something I'm so sad to admit is that I have not seen a lot of classic horror movies, including Halloween, Friday the 13th,
Yeah.
Chucky,
No,
Nightmare on Elm Street, Exorcist.
Yeah.
Haven't seen any of them.
Oh my God. Totally zero judgment here, but that's amazing.
It's not like it is, I think, because I grew up in a very, I don't even know if I would say very strict, but I had a family that horror movies were like not a thing. It was not an encouraged thing.
Yeah.
I mean, so
yeah, why do that to yourself? Why would anyone like why like I don't know. Like to a certain extent, like there's like like that's great. Like that's like I mean, do you feel like you're missing out on something? Like do you
Oh, totally.
Really?
Yeah. No, so the thing is, we had a video store in town. It was within walking distance of my house. And we would go up there weekly. And, my brother and I were allowed to pick out whatever movie we wanted to see. And the Disney section was adjacent to the horror section. So I always found myself browsing the horror VHS selection. And like you, certain covers of movies stuck with me to this day. Like I definitely thought I could figure out what they were about. And one that does stay with me is Silence of the Lambs was a big one. And then Candyman was the other one.
Oh wow.
Neither of which are possession horror. So
well, I mean,
but
one could argue Candyman may be a possession horror movie.
That's
but I'm obsessed with this idea that like you haven't watched these movies. Do you at some point are you at some point saying I will, or are you like I probably won't?
Yeah, eventually. I'm like,
are you banking them away? It's like today, like I'm just gonna binge all of these horror movies that I've never watched ever.
For some kind of like experiment, like a blog experiment or some kind of like reaction, whatever, I might. I have seen, what was it, Friday the 13th, like the third or the fourth or whatever.
Not even the first or the second, like you like just
no. And it was because it was on TV. It was like after midnight at a hotel after a show, and we got in and it was just on, so we put it on. But
I mean, this is astounding because this is basically like you are untouched terrain, like you're virgin soil. Like this is like all of these movies that have like affected generations of movie going audiences, horror film fans. Like you are pure.
but like when I've seen other horror movies, it's just not I think I've been not the classic ones, I guess, but but my first possession horror movie was Stigmata.
Whoa.
And
Roseanne, wait, Patricia Arquette,
Patricia
right?
Arquette
Oh my
and Gabriel
God.
Byrne. Yep.
That's phenomenal.
And so that's my intro.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, I have this visceral fear of possession horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's mostly because, you know, the director or whoever chooses to make the possessed person look terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they end up looking demonic, and those makeup choices frighten me.
Yeah.
And that's really it.
Yeah.
You know, things like Evil Dead and its many versions,
Yeah. Yeah.
except for maybe the third one. And God, what else? You know, The Exorcist, of course,
Yeah.
and the other Exorcist movies. They all just like, I don't know, it just freaks me out. Things that look kind of human that are not
Yeah.
are
Fair
frightening.
enough, right? Possession is terrifying. Like just the notion of losing one's autonomy internally, like there's something inside you that is manifesting itself and hijacking you. It's taking over, and you
Yeah.
have no ability to stop it. That's scary. Like
Yeah.
genuinely, like you know, and I think that we are at a place where the metaphor of possession, I feel like, has resonance outside of the genre of, like, you know, I mean, I'm thinking of, like, you know, COVID, and I'm thinking of
Mm.
Alzheimer's, and I'm thinking of, like, you know, we lose people even when they're present right in front of us. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah. Yep. Um, yeah, I've been writing a lot of like, well, grief horror, of course, which we write a fair amount of, but dementia, it certainly has a um, presence in several of
Mhm.
the books that I've recently written. And that's that, you know, losing somebody that you've known for such a long time, and they're losing pieces of themselves.
Yeah.
You're losing the person that you used to know.
Yeah.
And that's, well, it's
Yeah.
almost like being possessed by.
Have you heard of this film Relic that came out? I think probably like 2022 or 23.
Wasn't
I think it was in Australia. It's three generations, three women, grandmother, mother, I think daughter, maybe, or sister. But you know, a young woman and her sibling or her child are coming to her mother's place to help, because, like, they assume that she has Alzheimer's or dementia, and
Yeah.
there's something else potentially. And it's a beautiful film. It's really unnerving, but my God, like, yeah, it was one of those films that actually had a certain tenderness to it. Like, there was like a
Mm,
certain, like, you never lose sight of the fact, even though it is terrifying, uh, that, like, these are human beings, and, you know, that, like,
mhm.
this mother is, um, and another one, found footage film, The Possession of Deborah Logan, I think it
Oh
is.
yeah,
Ooh,
that's another one I've heard of.
it's a good one.
Some things have been spoiled for me,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay, do I need do I need to see it?
Yeah. I
Maybe.
I'm tempted to watch that one again. That one might, as soon as this is over, I might pop in Deborah Logan.
Nice.
I mean, it's like, it hinges on, like, one scene, you know, the thing that gets memed and shared everywhere, but,
Yeah.
like, but the build up to it, I think it's fun. is she possessed or is it Alzheimer's? Is it dementia or is it a demon?
Yep. Okay. All right. It's on the tentative list of of things to watch eventually.
Maybe.
But
That list is long
that
from the
list
sounds of it.
it's long. There's more that I didn't list, of course. But so this we'll jump into the next question, which is possession horror is one that typically falls into religious themes. With divinity and demons and heaven and hell. What gave you the idea to stray away from this for Wake Up and Open Your Eyes?
Oh, wow. Well, okay, because we're talking about The Exorcist, and I feel like I've gone on record about this. I love The Exorcist. I love The Exorcist. And I think it's galling. I think it's just awe-inspiring that's over 50 years old now. That film
God.
has it's been out in the ether for decades, over like almost half a century. And it still has this toehold on the genre. And to the extent where a whole exorcist narratives fall under the shadow of the it is very hard to forge out of the shoes, the shadow of William Friedkin and William Peter Blatty and that first film. And that's understandable. I mean, it's a classic and it's it really has left its mark. But I mean, even with today, 55 years later, there's Russell Crowe stars in a new Exorcist movie almost every year now. And they fall under the rubric, the metric of The Exorcist. And that just blows my mind that film is really kind of it's just taken over the genre. And understandably, but for me, in writing Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, I think that we live nowadays in a media saturated culture where news, information, lies, falsehoods, fallacies, it all gets kind of blended together. And even if one were to kind of go by the way in which we as a culture tend to imbibe our news, which is usually on our phones or on our tablets or our TV, we get things through these sources that may or may not be credible. But the din of it, the sheer kind of saturation of information, correct or not, is just so overwhelming that I don't think if someone were just to ask where did COVID come from, or where does peanut butter, who created peanut butter, someone could say, oh, it's here, I'll tell you where because I found it on this website. But then someone over here would be like, oh, that's actually not true. It's here, there's just this din of information that whether it's real or true or not, matters almost very little. And it's almost to the point where the not knowing is almost the point, I think. So with Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, there's no moment where the mask gets pulled off and it's it was the devil all along, but I do feel as if there are facts, there are details, there's information, but it's just the sheer din of someone thinks it's biological, some think it's spiritual, some say it's zombies, some say it's I feel as if I were to say or write this is what's happening and this is who's doing it, that would feel a little ham-fisted because I mean, like we're kind of past, we're like beyond truth now. Like, so I mean, maybe it's demons, maybe they're zombies, maybe they're maybe it's some weird kind of psychological mass hysteria. All of these are very pliable, viable, options. And that was just much more interesting because 50 years later, like the power of Christ compels you is like, it's, you want it to be there, but like we're just beyond it. We're just beyond it. Zombie demons.
Yep, zombie demons.
Zombie demons.
Well, I oh my God, I'm being attacked. There's something so much more terrifying about not knowing. That I don't know. It's almost a little more. Okay, cat. Seriously.
Zombie cat.
Yep. Yeah, it's more terrifying not knowing, and it's more realistic not knowing.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really smart choice.
Yeah. I mean, like, I want to know. Ambiguity sucks because it's just like the Paul Tremblay school of writing is, I don't know, is it possession?
Yeah.
Is she possessed? I don't know. Maybe she is.
That was my first possession novel.
Which is so infuriating, but it's so good and it lingers so much longer because you don't know, because it's like, beyond being an amazingly written novel, like that idea of like, I mean, I make a choice. I understand what I believe the book is to be. And I think, I want to believe that that's the book that Paul Tremblay wrote. But like, at the end of the day, like, there's a certain, like, maybe you're right, maybe you're not. And like, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
So imagine taking that frustration and going to Twitter for your answer and then getting 20 million different answers. And then, somewhere in there's truth, but you have to, like, it's just lacquered in like just layers of poop, of poopy wrong lies, poopy lies.
So true. I mean, it when you were talking, it made me think about when people post, and for me, I see this more on Facebook than anywhere else, but they're asking a generic question on Facebook, and then you get maybe 30 different comments, and 15 are saying the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, did anybody bother to check the rest of the comments to see if somebody else answered?
Yeah.
No. There is definitely this thing about humans where we're contented to try and be the ones who bring the truth, regardless of whether we actually have the facts behind it or not. And as a writer, when you're writing that kind of a thing into a book, there's something fun about casting doubt.
Totally.
Even though it's terrifying, but it's
it's making me want to make this grand sweeping statement that has no support in truth whatsoever. But like that idea of like, I think we're past pat resolutions. Like we go to movies and it's like the end happens and it's like, it was the butler all along. And you're like, I feel good now knowing that the butler, like, justice has been served. But it's like, I feel like that's a cheat. Like, and it's not because that wouldn't happen in real life, but I just feel like narrative is like, we're pushing beyond the pat kind of resolve. And I want to I want to argue that maybe the films that don't give you that deny you that, the books that don't kind of provide. There's this amazing movie, and I add it to your list or not, but like there's a film called When Evil Lurks. When Evil
Yeah,
Lurks.
I've heard of that one.
Oh,
Definitely.
it forges new territory in that Exorcist field in such a way that like I personally feel like it's like one of the best Exorcist films post Exorcist, because it doesn't play by the Exorcist's own rules and kind of forges its own path. And that's like, it's so rare, because we always have the priest who comes in and is like, we have to get this demon out of this
Yeah.
girl, or like, you know, like the boy is possessed. And you're just watching that, you know, the showdown between the man of the cloth and the demon. But like When Evil Lurks, which has a version of that in it, but like it's still kind of like, I love that movie. I love that movie.
But isn't it like a man and his brother, maybe?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
yeah.
mm-hmm.
No, that did look incredible.
Yeah.
The like, and it reminded me of Fallen, Denzel
Yes.
Washington.
Yes.
And that
Which
was
is,
another one that I saw early
yes.
too.
I love that movie. Both of those movies. I love Fallen for all of its foibles. Like Fallen is like the swinger of Exorcist movies. It's kind of loose, and it's like, hey man, I'm not gonna be tied down to one host. Like I'm just gonna be like, I'm keeping it loose. And I love that. Slutty demons. And like they're just like, I shouldn't talk too much about this, but like I'm working on something now that's like kind of like riffing off of Fallen, because I just love like demon, like Exorcist films or possession films or books. It's always like, you know, like one person starts to sense something is like invading them, and like, you know, they're hearing voice, like you go through the kind of rigmarole of it, and it's great, it's fine, but like it's always interesting when like, I don't know, Fallen was fun because it didn't, I don't know if it took itself that seriously, but it like introduced some like new interesting concepts of like, you know, bloop bloop bloop, like just like slutty demons, loose demons, keeping it, you know, we're moving on the go. We're not
I
sticking
mean, it
to one thing.
was, you know, the fun police procedural element, of course, and then yeah, the body hopping, which is different.
Yeah.
Most, and like you were saying, most possession movies, it's like, yeah, we have to take a jackhammer to this person and drive the demon out. It's really in there. It's not coming out.
Yeah.
And that's scary, but it's less scary than the idea that just any random person could be possessed on a whim at any given time.
Yeah. Is there more? This is a self-serving question. Like I'm asking for like research purposes, but like in the Fallen mode, like are there narratives of like freeform demons that just like hop, like just like body hopping devils or demons, or like, I mean, Evil Dead, they, you know, is there something like that? Something that feels very much like beep, boop, beep, bop.
I mean, that's honestly, the Evil Dead's the only other one I can think of.
Yeah.
That kind of like moves like a parasite almost.
Yeah.
And I mean, Resident Evil maybe could be your only other pull, if you wanted to think of it as possession. Well, a certain Resident Evil Resident Evil 7 would be more like possession
Wow.
than the others, but
it's astounding they got that far up. Yeah, I love Fallen. That is catnip to me.
yeah, it's a good one. And we've already kind of touched upon this question, which was the next one that I had, which was talking about the theme of media literacy in the book, particularly people's disregard or blind acceptance for fact-checking the things that they hear and see, and how it alters their perception. In your book, it's represented as possession. And is there anything else that you want to add about that we haven't already covered?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, possession is media literacy and possession is interesting because for me, what I love about, I mean, love is a terrible way to say it. What I find interesting about radicalization or indoctrination by way of social media is that it always starts with this desire to be better. I want to feel better. I want to be better. I want to do better. I want to like, there's some like need internal to the person, and wellness and influencer culture is, I think, a bit diabolic, because what I have seen, not always, but occasionally, this idea that like that desire of wanting to feel better, be better, do better, these influencers kind of take advantage of that and exploit that in their followers, and say, here's the solution, here's the answer. I'm going to provide 5 easy steps for you to feel better about yourself, to be a better person, to do better, and then from there it becomes like, maybe you should drink this or click on this link and like watch this video, it's amazing how like there's a certain pattern or a path that just kind of like pushes someone kind of away from their own personal sense of autonomy, and could lead to indoctrination or a shift in one's ideology. And for me, that, I mean, I've seen it happen to people I know, people I love. I think it's nefarious and it's sad and scary. But it always, I mean, because primarily it always starts from a place where it's like, I don't feel good about myself. I want to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's someone on the other side of that screen who's just like saying like, I'll make you feel better. Just click this. And I just thought, that is a really kind of interesting story to tell. I just sugarcoated it with demons and said, yeah, these are zombie demons.
Yeah. I hadn't actually thought of it in that way of people wanting to be better, and
you let the devil in.
Yes, that's very true. We all kind of question our own decisions and have I done the right thing? Have I done the wrong thing? This person must know better than I do, because otherwise they wouldn't have, the number of followers they have, I think is a pretty big, convincing point. So
yeah,
that is what happens. I've seen that as well, personally. It is sad.
Yeah. It happens.
It does. I think those were all the questions I had.
Yeah. Amazing.
About well, just about Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which is out now for those of you who are watching, and you should definitely check out that book if you haven't already. Get it by any means necessary. This is me influencing you.
Click on this link.
Click on this link. But I went the wrong way in my. So the next question is it's kind of sort of related. Is this book is a bit different than your previous catalog, which has been more in the vein of grief horror, which we touched upon a little bit. Were you excited to do something different for this book? Is grief horror something you think you'll go back to? And if so, what about it would draw you back?
It's interesting to hear this idea of like, I mean, for a while there, like a lot of the stuff I was writing definitely kind of like orbited grief horror as a niche, as a subgenre. And it wasn't so much that Wake Up and Open Your Eyes was a like I made the conscious decision not to write grief horror anymore. For me, it's just like, what is scaring me right now? These are the things that are scaring me, so I want to tell that story. But I will say, I always get very suspect of myself if I ever feel as if I'm identifying myself as a particular thing. So like, it's very, I'm cautious around the idea of being like a grief horror guy or like like that, only because grief horror, in my mind, the stuff that I've read that really affects me, there's a level of honesty, like brutal honesty, that is so devastating that it feels like such a kind of like emotional hand grenade. So when I write grief horror, it's never on the conscious decision of like, I am now going to write grief horror, because I think the level of honesty, that's emotional honesty, that is required to write something that is in fact grief horror. You can't be like, all right, it's time to write some grief horror, guys. Like, it's like, because that to me feels like it's coming, like if the conscious decision is there, then the grief itself doesn't, I don't know, like I feel suspect of it. For me, like if like like as soon as I'm like, I'm gonna write something that's gonna break your heart, then like I'm putting a certain intent that kind of like it's almost like cart before the horse. So I have to watch out for that for me, because otherwise like it feels untrue, or it feels kind of like a false note. But that all said, I have written this thing that is probably the griefiest of grief horror. Like it might, like it might be the thing that like, oh, like, and I wrote it like a couple of years ago now, and like I can't talk about it in other than these abstract terms, and it has a place, it has a home, but it won't be for a while before it comes out. But I wrote that, and there was like a feeling afterwards where I was like, oh, okay, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to write grief horror for a while. And it was because I went to a place personally that was like, this is either highly inappropriate or very emotionally honest or true, maybe a little bit of both. I don't know. But I like like for me, like after the fact, I was like, I have said what I have needed to say, and I don't know if I need to dip into that well again, or at least for a while. I'm going to go on a grief sabbatical. I'm going to go to a sunny, happy place and write love stories.
I get that. As
How do you do it?
As somebody who has done that, I wrote the one non-horror book in my catalog is a romantic comedy that I wrote. God, almost 10 years ago. And it's because I had just finished writing this super dark book. And I went to a place in that book that felt very heavy. And I was like, yeah, I need to write something, something kind of light, something kind of cute. And I wrote it, and it did decent because romantic anything does well for the most part. And then I've never gone back. I've never gone to that nice light place again. And I think there's just something in me that's like, I want to try and examine grief from its as many angles as I can in order to understand it for myself. And I'm okay with doing it because I'm never revisiting the same shadows, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there are a lot of shadows out there.
Yeah. And I'm always trying to figure out a different way for a character to overcome it or not. So that's basically where I've found myself circling the drain. But I completely understand the not wanting to, feel like you're stuck doing this one thing, or not even being known for doing this one thing. And I think it gets hard when you are self-publishing, because you're always thinking from that marketing standpoint of like, how am I going to make people want to read this, and make this sad thing feel marketable.
Do you find that the subgenre, though, like, I mean, maybe it's just the kind of circles I'm circling, but like, I just feel like for a year or two or three now, like everyone's been like, yeah, grief horror. Like, give me that grief horror.
I think last year it definitely had its heyday.
Yeah.
And this year, I've seen an overwhelming amount of grief horror, because there's a lot of things. Because there's a lot of things that people are upset by, and I think that they're that's just manifesting. And
or maybe we just need to exorcise our get it all.
I mean, it is a really cathartic way to get it out. So more people discovering that is not something that I'm sad about, if that is the case.
Give me that sweet, sweet grief.
Yep. We're in the final portion of our interview and we've already discussed several horror films that have influenced you in the realm of possession horror. Any books or television shows, I don't know if you're a gamer, games that you would also like to list in terms of things that you've found to be neat?
Yeah. Games I can't do. I'm not a gamer, I'll admit. TV shows, I'm curious, like, I couldn't think of any TV shows. I mean, I know they did like a Exorcist TV series for a while, but I actually never watched it.
They did, and I did see that.
Was it good?
I mean, it was compelling enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't scary.
Yeah.
We'll say that.
Now that I'm thinking about it, Cinemax, way back when there was Cinemax, there was a TV series they did. Maybe it only lasted a season. That was based off of a Robert Kirkman graphic novel series. What was it called? Undone or Unjust or the Unbibida. I'm not gonna be able to pull it out, but there was like a kind of like a gritty, down on his luck exorcist guy, young exorcist guy. I'm not gonna get it. It's like ungone. Yeah, I mean, it left an impression clearly. But like there was that TV show. But there's this book. I have all these notes here in front of me, and I'm gonna try to. There's a book called Pandemonium. And who wrote Pandemonium? Why am I not finding? It came out like early 2000s, like maybe like 2002. I'm not gonna be able to get it, but you find a book called Pandemonium. That's a great one. Come Closer by Sarah Gran. There was Nightfire released something called The Night Guest by.
I have that in the other room.
Yeah, it's really good. The 1-2 of Come Closer and The Night Guest, so good. Daryl Gregory, Pandemonium by Daryl Gregory. It's like a possession epidemic, kind of.
Okay.
That was a really good one. That came out like over maybe 10, 20 years ago now. Wow. I can't do TV is weird because I can't think of anything. Like I'm gonna keep trying to. I'm like, as soon as I say it's gonna like pop up like the undone. I just keep I don't know what it is.
I was gonna see if I could find it here. Oh, I tried to.
All right, if you're looking, then I'm gonna look.
And
I'm gonna type in a few words, and they're gonna lead to the actor who was in it, because I remember the actor. Outcast. Not Uncast. Outcast.
We're close.
I mean,
started with a vowel.
In theory. It was pretty good. Now I want to see if I can find it. It was on Cinemax. So like, because now that there's no Cinemax, does that mean it goes to HBO Go? I have to find this now. I'm gonna watch this tonight. I
was gonna say, if it's on HBO, I could watch it.
Oh, it's not.
Oh, Brent Spiner's in it. Oh dear.
Is that a no-go?
Well, no. I like Brent Spiner. I'm a Star Trek Next Generation fan.
It looks like you can rent it on Apple, which is so weird. Why would they not have it on HBO? That's unfortunate.
Mm.
Anywho, there you go.
We got the name.
Yes.
I think my last question was, where can we find out more about you? Where can
Does
where
anyone
can
want to find out more
people
about me?
find you?
Where?
'Cause I'm sure.
Where are you? I mean, I'm trying all the social media apps. Like I'm exploring, like doing kind of like a toe dip. Seems like Blue Sky. I mean, like I'm on all of them. I'm still on Twitter. I'm still on Facebook. I'm still on Instagram. I'm still on TikTok. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. Like I'm on all of these sites, but I'm like just kind of sprawling. I'm like donutting through them all. Like I'm just like I come in, I bloop, and then I
Yep.
jump out. I like, it's terrible because it's not really engagement. And
But
what I
it's
think
so much.
it's so much. And like, I mean, I miss the days of like what social media did, which was like connect people and like you could have conversations with people. And you can still do that, but it just doesn't feel, I don't know. I've just grown a little cagey with social media stuff. So I'll be like bloop and then I like bail.
Yeah.
I bloop and bail. That's my kind of MO. I'm blooping and bailing on all of them. So find me on all of them.
It's going to be the next social media app is Bloop and Bail.
Bloop and bail. Yeah. It's like all the blooping, but none of the like engagement. You don't need to engage, just bloop, bail.
No, I understand the Bloop and Bail, honestly, because it's it's hard to build engagement on 5 or 6 different social media apps.
Yeah.
And then, one that doesn't even have an algorithm. You're just kind of throwing whatever out into the wind to hopefully have people see.
Is that Blue Sky?
That's Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, like it's so strange how like there was this like this period where like like social media had great value. And I still think it does, but it's like curdled cream now.
Yeah.
Like maybe you can still drink it if you wanted to. Like maybe take a little sips, like put it in your coffee. Like it's gone.
Be prepared for the side effects.
Yeah.
Yeah. The possible possession.
Possible possession. You will definitely be puking pea soup.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on and
Thanks for
talking
having
to us
me.
about possession horror and your new book and all the fun stuff. The Exorcist.
Yeah. No, it was fun to chat. And if anything, it's just an excuse to hang out with you, which was, always a treat. So thanks for having me on.
Well, anytime. And thank you, viewers, for coming out and hanging out with us tonight. We really appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, Grumpy Rick.
And next, and thank you, Rick. And tomorrow night, we've got back-to-back episodes this week because I was sick last week, and absolutely no one needed to hear how I sounded. So tomorrow night we have Scott J. Moses.
Wow.
And we'll be talking about surreal horror, which is a topic that's super fun. We did an episode on it last season with Mike Tyree, and that was really fun. So it'll be fun to see what Scott has to say about it.
Tell Scott I said howdy.
I will. All right. Well, we will see you guys on the other side. Take care and have a good night.
Bye, guys. Whoa.